Live from New York, it's the show with two Chiefs fans.
Oh, stop it. You've got to stop this.
Did you see the behind-the-back pass today from Patrick
It's
Mahomes?
bad.
Woo!
It's bad.
It's good for my heart. It's first things first. Yeah, that's an official medical opinion.
Strong
and the Bengals Twitter feed put out a polite recommendation. Everyone, please stop calling and offering us your calf muscles. It doesn't work like that. So, Nick, do you expect the injury to flare up, be a problem this year?
Well, impossible to predict if it'll flare up. The medical experts I follow on Twitter say this is probably about a month that he deals with it and that he has limited mobility at week 1 of the regular season at the very least. That could clearly be a problem. But my initial question before I even get to that is, why was he out there? He had a coach. It's the first 2 days of training camp. He's your franchise quarterback. He was wearing a sleeve on his calf. I'm not saying I don't believe that training camp's meaningless and don't practice, or I'm not saying that. But if your franchise quarterback has any type of pre-existing injury, wouldn't it make sense for him to not practice until he could practice without the sleeve on his calf? Am I crazy for that? Is that
sleeve?
Did anybody say that there was a pre-existing injury? I mean,
whoever put the sleeve on his calf that he aggravated.
To keep muscles warm. He was rolling out to the right and he hurt his calf. It wasn't like it was a contact drill or a defensive lineman fell into his legs or somebody, he hit his hand with their helmet. And he was rolling out to his right. It's a freak thing. It's no big deal from a practice structure perspective. It's hard to look at the coaches and go, why would you put that guy out there to run against, essentially air?
I guess I feel almost more strongly because of the way it happened. If it was a freak thing where you hit your hand on a helmet, then there is nothing you can do. He was dealing with a slight calf issue, and there is Joe Burrow does not need the extra, the first few days of camp. If you were worried about it enough that you're like, hey, preventatively, let's wear this sleeve so you don't tweak it, maybe he shouldn't have been out there. But whatever, there's nothing you can do about that. He is now injured. My question for you, Coach, would be, is it legitimate to be concerned for a team that has had as many issues with the offensive line as they have had if Joe Burrow goes into the games that actually count with some limited mobility? Because if I were a Bengals fan, that would be the last thing I wanted, is Joe Burrow, who has been better than just about any quarterback in football at dealing with a horrific offensive line situation a couple years ago. Last year was better, but not great. If he's not at 100% physically, will he be able to keep himself out of harm's way if the offensive line has the issues they've had in years past?
Well, there's a lot of things here. So there's about 5 weeks or a little more than 5 weeks till the start of the season. Usually these calf injuries, 1 to 3 weeks, maybe it could be maybe a little bit longer if it's a little bit worse. We don't really know where it was. Yeah, do you want your franchise quarterback going into the start of the season with the possibility to re-injure something? No, you're going to take as much time as you possibly can. But from your point, if you feel that the doctors and the trainers made a mistake by putting him on the field in the first place, are you really going to take their advice now if they say he's ready to go, the next phase? So we're none of us are doctors. We've got to take the advice of what those guys say and what the player says. And he's not going to go out there if he can't protect himself. I'd say a bigger issue is whether or not he gets on the field until this contract's done. Right. I mean, how would anybody advise him to go back on the field without getting this done?
So here's the Schefter quote. There's a real chance that we will not see Joe Burrow back on the practice field again until he has a new contract that makes him the highest paid player in the NFL history. You want him sitting out?
Well, I think I'm not trying to disrespect Adam Schefter here at all. I think that's the phrasing of that is almost unfair to Joe, I think. Because if Joe hadn't gotten hurt, I think it was pretty clear he wanted to, and I think smartly, from a financial perspective, wait for Jalen to get his deal, then for Justin to get his deal, and then he would come in last because he's going to set the new market. We can talk about if that's a good or a bad thing for the Bengals later. So I think whether he had gotten hurt yesterday or not, he was getting his new contract in the next, call it 10 to 14 days. I don't think now it's like, I won't take the field until my contract's done. I think the contract was going to get done over the next couple weeks either way, and he's going to be too hurt or injured or whatever to take the field. That tweet almost made it seem like he's going to hold out until the contract's done. I don't think that's the situation at all. I do think he's getting a contract, and we won't see him on the field until after the contract's done.
But why does it need 14 days? We've got the comps. We know that they're going to make him the highest paid guy. They've been working on this forever, and this used to frustrate me so much where there's like gamemanship with contracts, and then as soon as a deadline comes in, they can get it done in a day. Like, you know what the comps are. You know he's your guy. You go lock yourselves in a room and get the contract done. You can get it done in 1 or 2 days, and then this isn't even an issue and nobody's talking about it. This doesn't need 2 weeks.
Well, and so the bigger part, Wildes, of Schefter's tweet was because you've talked about, is Burrow going to take, is he going to look at, okay, Herbert's what, 52.5 is the new benchmark?
Yep.
He's at 52.5, so I've got to be at 53 or 54 plus, or is he going to take a little bit less? Schefter's tweet makes it seem like, no, he's going to be at 53, plus. He's going to be the highest paid player in league history. And that, I do not begrudge Joe Burrow that at all. He's earned it more than Herbert's earned it. He's earned it as much, if not more than Hurts, Lamar, these other guys who've gotten paid. Very, very difficult to win if the team you're chasing has the best player and he makes considerably less than your guy who's not quite as good as him. And that's, hold on, just real quick. The Colts tried to do this for years, and it's a pretty apples to apples situation here. The Patriots had the best quarterback in the league, the best coach in the league, and the quarterback was on a discount. While Tom Brady was on the Patriots, in the 19 years he played, 18 healthy, they made the conference title game 13 times. They made the Super Bowl 9 times. The Indianapolis Colts, with Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen, Marvin Harrison, all-time great wide receiver, Reggie Wayne there for a long time as well. In his entire Colts career, they made, I looked it up this morning, the AFC title game 3 times. They made the Super Bowl 2 times. What is the reason? Is Brady 4x better than Peyton? Of course not. But you could surround him with the better players. And I do think if you're Cincinnati, you worry that is what you're running into right now in Kansas City. Because Kelsey makes nothing. Mahomes is the 7th highest paid quarterback. And you're about to have the highest paid quarterback and next year the highest paid receiver ever. That's going to be tough for Cincinnati. It's just flatly going to be tough.
But he's going to be the highest paid quarterback for just a little while. Just like Mahomes was the highest paid quarterback for just a little while. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, we're going to say, God, Joe Burrow's underpaid compared to everybody else. He's the 7th highest paid guy because each contract's going to get readjusted. There is a period where when you pay your elite young guy big money, that then he has to go prove that he can win with some talent that maybe isn't as expensive, like Patrick Mahomes was able to do. But Patrick Mahomes' deal was very team-friendly initially. However, he's still substantially compensated versus what he was on his rookie year.
No, of course. But Wildes, right now, it's just, and I know nobody wants to hear it from me because I'm the Chiefs fan, not you, the Chiefs fan.
The new Chiefs,
the new Chiefs fan.
You've been
but
there long.
I don't know how you can be Chiefs and Patriots fan.
It is a very unique spot because Kelsey is, in my opinion, as impactful as the best receivers in the league. Of
course.
He makes half of what the best receivers in the league make. He makes $14 million against the cap. The best receivers are Tyreek's at 30. Other guys are in the high 20s. Jamar is going to be, he and Justin Jefferson are going to set the record for receiver money next year. Mahomes is exponentially better than any other quarterback in the league. And he is paid like a really good quarterback. Mm-hmm. It is
exponentially.
I don't know if we listen. I don't know what graphics we do or don't have. I have a great Burrow Mahomes thing we could show you, but I don't even know if they're working. Oh, we do. You won't be able to see it, Coach, but I'll try to recite it from memory. Yeah. It's their playoff numbers just the last 2 years. So I didn't try to do totality because Mahomes has been in the league longer. So the records look similar, 5-1 for Mahomes versus 5-2 for Burrow. Everything else, though, is dramatically in Mahomes' favor. His completion percentage above 70, more than 50 yards per game more than Burrow, and the touchdowns are almost 3x what Burrow's is. Again, we don't have returns, so I'm doing it. If I make a fool of myself, you guys can make fun of me on the internet.
Nailed it.
And I think his passer rating in the playoffs is around 110, and Burrow's is in the mid-90s. Burrow is, in my opinion, as I was saying all last year, the second best quarterback in football. But we are in a spot where the gap between the second best and the best is bigger than the gap between the second best and the eighth best. And if the guy who's at the top
Mahomes
is not making that
more
money,
experience.
Yeah.
Mahomes has Andy Reid.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
is he exponentially better than Burrow, or does his experience come into play? Does the coach that you have come into play? I mean, I think it's a little bit
exponentially better.
I think it's not
as
apples
long
to
as
apples.
the coach is there, I guess my point is the Bengals are trying to position themselves to win a championship, and I wonder if they are going to find themselves in the position, like the rest of the AFC, that they did when the Patriots run was going on, which is 2 out of 3 years we know who's going to be there in the AFC. Yep. It's the team with the best player who's also paid like he's the 10th best.
We're going to take a look at the odds to win the AFC. KC is at number 1, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Jets. Coach, who's the biggest threat, and is it Joe Burrow?
Well, I can't. What's Cincinnati's record against Kansas City recently?
3-1.
0-1 in their last one.
3-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're the biggest threat, obviously, because and this happens sometimes where you just match up better against certain teams, and that was the case when we played the Colts. We matched up well against the Colts, and it was a problem for them, and that's the reality. And to some degree, Kansas City has an issue and a problem with Cincinnati, and until they can consistently beat Cincinnati like they have every other team, I think they're the biggest threat.
Okay, I would listen.
Put it on the bulletin board.
I was the only person in the football media last year advocating for the Bengals, that the Bengals should be given the respect the Bills were given. Mm-hmm. So I do not want to come across as a Cincinnati hater here. But my answer is not the Bengals. It's obviously not the Bills. And the Bengals' ownership of Kansas City, if people watched the games, is a little bit of a misleading situation. I can go through the 4 games by memory. The first time they ever played, the Chiefs had the game well in hand. And then, to his credit, Jamar Chase had one of the greatest halves of football I've ever seen someone have.
Is he still with Cincinnati?
Of course it counts, and it led to the Bengals winning by 3 points. The next time they played,
but is he still in?
Of course he does.
Okay.
Let me just allow me to finish. The next time they played was the playoff game, which the Chiefs were up 20-3, and then Mahomes had the only bad playoff half of his life. And if that's going to happen again, the Chiefs are. When Mahomes plays terribly, the Chiefs aren't good. Luckily, it's happened once in a 5-year run. And the next time they played, the Chiefs had the game well in hand.
You said a 21-point lead?
And Kelsey lost his one fumble he lost all year, and the Bengals won by 3. So the idea that any of these games it's been a domination is not the case. But my answer,
the game that you
but they still won it in a lot of different ways. They won it with an elite receiver. They won it coming back from 21 points.
Yes.
And they won it with a turnover.
Yes.
Okay, so we can find reasons why any team lost any close game, and you can point to a handful of plays. That's every single NFL game. But when a team consistently is a problem for another team, odds are they're going to continue to be a problem unless something dramatically changes.
It's all fair. I think it has been overwrought, the Bengals having the Chiefs number, but we'll see. They'll play again this year, and if the Bengals are fortunate enough to be invited to the Arrowhead Invitational, they'll play again. My answer is the Chargers, and I want to know your take on it from this perspective. So Mahomes has never blown out the Chargers. It's one of the only, I think, 2 teams in the league that he's played multiple times and doesn't have, and not once have they, beat him by multiple scores.
What's the record?
Mahomes has only lost to the Chargers once. The Chiefs have lost another time in the Mahomes era, but that's when they sat everyone, and then they lost early on. Philip Rivers still there. But that's not why. The reason is because if they were to play in the playoffs, Coach, it'd be the 3rd time of playing a team in the, over the course of the year. And I think getting a look at what the Chiefs are doing, having the familiarity, and then getting a 3rd bite at the apple makes them, for me as a Chiefs fan, with all that talent, those receivers, those pass rushers, everybody, it makes them the scariest of the 3 major AFC AFC candidates.
Well, I do love the thought process of the team that beats me consistently, I'm not worried about. But the team we beat consistently, I am worried about because we're going to play them a third time, even though I have the most experienced head coach who can probably capitalize on the things that happened the first 2 games. I've got the much more experienced quarterback and team in general. My team knows how to win. The other team has no idea how to win, and each year kind of disappoints in a different way. But I'm worried about those guys, not the team that beats me.
You know what, Coach?
3 out of 4
He's telling me I shouldn't be worried about anybody.
I thought you were worried about the Ravens.
No, well, the
could be a
Ravens
problem.
to me are. Brew had been saying that the Ravens are the biggest threat. It's a weird spot because I don't think the Ravens are the biggest threat in the AFC as far as over the course of a 20-game season. The Ravens are the scariest one-off team. The Ravens are the scariest team to face in a single elimination spot because if Lamar's rolling and that running game is so unique and if he's accurate that day, they feel like their offense can just be an avalanche.
The running game's not going to be unique anymore without Greg Roman. Greg Roman was that running game.
Well, having a quarterback that runs a 4-2 is helpful.
He's a unique player, but I'm saying the scheme, the ways they attack, the ways they use Lamar, I mean, that was Greg.
Okay. I'm out on Baltimore now. Now they're just like everybody else, want to throw the ball around.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.